Hello and welcome to a Sleepy Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand, sleepy because people I think are still recovering from the time change on the weekend. It's never a good one. The spring forward is the one that hurts the most, and we've sprung forward, and everybody showed, at least here, showed up on time. So looks like the clock changes and the watch changes all happened as according to plan. It was a foggy morning this morning. If you were up early, you saw that we had that really soupy stuff, particularly up above the ridge and into Clayton Park. It's most of it. I looked at the windows just before we came back is gone. There might be a little bit lingering around, but we're looking at a high temperature today of 11 degrees, folks. Right? We lost a ton of snow on the weekend. We had warm temperatures. We had fog, which y'all know means that the fog eats the snow, right? So, and creates some of the fog. But it looks like we're going to lose a bunch more today and even more tomorrow, with the forecasted high for tomorrow 14 degrees. It has people maybe thinking about leaving the jacket at home, right? We haven't done that for a long period of time around here. By Wednesday evening, I would think a majority of our snow will probably be gone. I'm sure there's going to be banks around probably until April or May, but the majority of the snow that is in HRM will be gone, and I know that many of you are very happy to see the rear view, I'll call it, of winter and moving into spring, which is my favorite season of the year. We saw on Friday, speaking of water, Halifax Water released a statement about a data breach. The utility says it's investigating what it calls unauthorized access to information on its online portal for customers. Halifax Water says it shut down that portal on Friday, and saying there was no indication that any financial information was put at risk. The utility says that if any customers, though, get a phone call from someone claiming to be with Halifax Water, they should hang up and then call back using the number that's on its website. Halifax Water says it's not contacting customers regarding that incident. We also saw a power outage, several-hour-long power outage at the VG hospital over on the weekend. Some surgeries there had to be canceled because of the outage. Friday morning, the outage was, the health authority says the hospital is usually protected from outages because of its backup generator, but apparently there was some kind of issue with the switch, the switch that changes over from Nova Scotia Power to generator power. So that was the responsible for that. I think there was 5 or 6 surgeries that had to be changed from the VG to the QE2 as a result of that. Well, the war in Iran, it continues. We see that the Iranians have at least allegedly named a new leader as that war drags on. Still no ships moving through that Strait of Hormuz, people, and that has world oil prices on the rise this morning. I'm just looking at the numbers. The WTI, that's the West Texas stuff here in North America, is at $102.68 a barrel. Brent crude, that's the international standard, the one that comes to us from the UK. It's $104.19. That's a 13% change. Gasoline prices, folks, up 8.38%. So we saw an interrupter clause on the weekend on diesel, and I think it's 19 cents was what we've seen diesel prices go up. We know the far-ranging impacts of what that means. And gasoline prices, I don't have any inside information, obviously, but it feels like if we stay at 8% or 9% increase of the New York mercantile price, then I'm going to assume that we're going to see another, perhaps, interrupter clause or two. It's Monday. It's time now, of course, for Councillors on the Hot Seats. If you want to chat with our councillors, the lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Very pleased to welcome to the show today, starting on the phone, District 3, Dartmouth South, Woodside Eastern Passage Councillor. That's Becky Kent. Becky, hello.
Hi, Dan. It's good to hear you. Sorry.
Good to hear you as well.
You.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and in the studio today, District 9, Halifax West Armdale. That's Shawn Cleary. Shawn, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I guess if I turn your microphone, it might help. Let's try that again. Good morning, Shawn.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Buttons, buttons. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Obviously, lots to discuss with our councillors, and much of the attention as of late in the city has been focused on the ongoing budget deliberations. And I think I'll ask a broad question to kind of get things started, and I'll start on the phone with Councillor Kent. How, in your opinion, has the budget process been going? And are we getting closer to, obviously we're getting closer to the end of it, but closer to knowing what that final number is going to be?
Dan, I think it's been a messy process this year. It's been a little chaotic with some screwdrivers sort of thrown into the mix of it when we're stirring it all up. But we are getting there, I believe. We're getting to a point where I think that we could land somewhere where the property tax bill may not be as high as it was originally suggested through social media and through members of council, particularly the mayor. I know that he was looking for a special, a very significant drop in that, but it's a tough time right now for all of us. We've been looking through as much as we can to see if there's tightening that can happen, and I think we have pushed staff very well for that. We still have a little bit more to go. First time we're going to revisit capital, which is a really unusual step for us in the past, at least in my experience. And I don't quite know if anyone's going to be happy, us or the residents of our municipality. But nonetheless, I think we're trying very hard to see if we can come out in a place where everyone has at least a little bit of sense that we tried.
Councillor Cleary, you agree with that? It's been a messy process this year?
I wouldn't say messy. It's been longer and more complex because we have dug into the numbers more deeply and asked for increases and decreases in terms of just the sheer number of items that have come before us. In a way we haven't in the past. And so because, as Becky mentioned, it's a tight year, probably the tightest I've ever experienced, we're digging in deeper than we usually do. And so that means you got to get deeper into programs, you got to get a lot more information, you got to ask for a lot more options. So where before we might have had, a dozen things on the budget adjustment list, I think between the tables and the other briefing notes that we had, trying to remember now, I counted them up. It was well over 100 and change. So, that just makes it longer. And maybe it appears messier because we're just doing so much.
Yeah.
Some of the nuggets that have floated out already with the meetings as they're progressing. One last week, of course, caught the attention of many, and that was the change, or will be a change to the parking rate and to eliminating Saturday free parking, at least after the first hour. And I'll start with you, Councillor Cleary, your thoughts on this, and what have you been hearing from your residents with regards to this change?
With my own residents, actually none so far. Right. Not sure if it hasn't been socialized well enough yet. From the business improvement districts, particularly downtown Spring Garden, some backlash, obviously. But if it was up to me, I would charge for parking throughout the entire municipality. I would figure out a way to get the province to give us the authority to charge parking on parking lots in Bears Lake and places like that. We don't have that. So unfortunately, the target tends to be, so when you think about where we actually charge for parking, it's where it's in demand. Right. So it's going to be mostly in the urban core. And you're going to be looking at places like the street parking around main streets, downtown area. You're looking at, we only have the one parking lot that we own and is managed at Metro Park. And so, we dug into all those as much as we could. I like the idea of the first free hour because with businesses, what I hear from, especially in my district on Quinpool and downtown, is they want turnover. They want customers to come, customers to buy stuff, and then new customers to show up. And so if you allow 8 hours of parking continuous, then someone's going to stick a car there, and it's going to sit there all day, and they're not going to generate money for businesses. And so turnover is the most important thing when it comes to parking, and anything we can do to help that.
Councillor Kent, your thoughts on the parking increase and getting rid of free parking on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Shawn articulated it very well. I think it's very much a central area concern. District 3 doesn't really have any of those areas, but our residents in the area certainly go to the downtown and to the core center. The parking is a double-edged sword, I think, for sure, and Shawn mentioned it, that there's going to be businesses that feel like that's going to push people away, but then there's also going to have the ability for the turnover, Shawn said. So I think parking is an area that we can push a little bit further on and generate a little more revenue, which is, at the end of the day, is what we're looking for in budget. So, I think it's some folks are going to have difficulty with it, though, I think.
Councillor Cleary, you mentioned Quinpool Road. I've had a conversation, not necessarily with Quinpool Road, but with the Business Improvement District on Spring Garden and downtown Halifax as well. And obviously, they're not happy with the loss of the free parking on Saturday. They're also not happy that there's no provision that the increase in these parking rates will go towards improving those districts, instead going into general revenues. Your thoughts on that?
So the Parking Benefit District, which is what they're referring to, is a report that'll still be coming back to us.
Right.
But there's a trade-off there. And I've had many conversations with Sue and Paul and others. When you look at the idea behind it, what they're asking for is essentially all the money you pick up on parking, give it to us. Okay. So that means we'd also then have to raise the general rate on other taxpayers to give you that money. And so it's not a plus sum game. It's not like, well, if we give it to you, it just magically appears again in the budget somewhere else. It's got to be taken away from somewhere. So, that's why when we're looking at this, it's a project worth pursuing, but there also has to be an expectation that they won't be able to get access to all that money. Now, what do we do with business improvement districts? We do a lot already with business improvement districts, over and above their own taxes that they collect and their members through their boards do things with. And so it's a conversation that always has to keep going. I mean, we spent, I'm trying to remember the exact figure now, well over $10 or $15 million on Spring Garden Road, trying to make it a better road for people so that more people will go there. It's one of the most used streets for pedestrians this side of Montreal. And so, those are things that we need to continue to do with those business improvement districts. And parking is just one aspect. But parking, so, it's not, you're not giving up free parking entirely, because there are lots of areas where it wasn't free parking anyway. A lot of people use off-street parking. They go to parkades, et cetera. Those aren't free.
Right.
And so free parking, we're talking about the community's parking. We're talking about streets owned by all residents of HRM. And how fair is it to not be charging for those when those other people are going to have to make it up somewhere else because the funding is required. So it comes from one side or it comes from the other side.
I think the model that we're referencing, Shawn, was the model that with the Waterfront Commission, right? Where those lots, and I know they're more expensive than the other places to park, but those lots generate money for the waterfront, and they can use that to do what they do.
Right. So the difference is, though, the waterfront owns those parking lots.
Yeah.
And they own all the land that they do stuff on for improvements. And so this is an area where you have a business improvement district, which is a separate autonomous group from the city, asking for that public resource to be given to them. And so I get it. It's a conversation worth having, but that's not analogous to the waterfront.
Councillor Kent, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to offer other than to say I look forward to the report and see where we might be able to stretch this a little bit.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues after our first break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Councillors on the Hot Seat is on the air. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. On the phone with us today is Councillor Kent. In the studio today with us is Councillor Cleary, and they are here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones, and we say good morning to Glenn. Glenn, how are you?
Good, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity also, and to you, councillors, to speak to you today. I'm going to be quick with three quick questions. With the Windsor Street Exchange, widening Roby Street, the Bloomfield development and the Bragg family development and much, much more just on Roby. And the most importantly, 41% of bike lanes unfinished and estimated until 2030 to be complete. Why don't you cancel or at least postpone the e-micromobility project for now and wait till everything is complete so that we're going to be as safe as possible for our youth, basically, that are going to be on these things. Number two, Councillor Hartling, I think, mentioned the rider signs a waiver. And when signing these waivers, it takes all the responsibility off of Bird Canada, City of Halifax, and any other authority, and puts it back on the rider for damage to third-party liability, damage to any property, etc. Number three, the taxpayer is paying $111,000 for two project managers to babysit these things, plus two enforcement officers, $90,000, plus buying transportation for both of them at the cost of the taxpayer to babysit these things. So if you want to save money, councillors, maybe that would be it. Just give me your opinion on that, please. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn. We'll start with you, Councillor Cleary.
Sure. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it, Glenn. So a couple things. One, even if we canceled the pilot, which is for the e-scooters with Bird, there are private e-scooters that people are driving around, and there's more of them than there are the e-scooters that are for rent through Bird. And so you'd still have to deal with all the e-scooters that are allowed on the road under the Provincial Motor Vehicle Act. So they don't go away just because we stop a pilot program. And there's no reason why we can't do both simultaneously. You know, there are bicycles that need to be on the road. There are scooters that need to be on the road. And so this is just one small program. The thing that we're doing and what the project manager is doing is overseeing the program and then eventually writing a report on whether or not we should continue this and whether or not it should be private, city run, et cetera. We're a small municipality. We're not as big as Montreal. We're not as big as New York or Paris, where they have bikes for rent and that kind of stuff. And so, we need to look at all these different things, and that report, when the pilot's done, will come back to us and we'll make a decision at that point.
Councillor Kent?
Yeah, I think that the pilot has to move forward so we have the information that we need. And Sean's right. I mean, e-scooters are a one version, and the micromobility platform allows us to give consideration to a number of things. Regarding the waiver, though, the waivers are a consistent industry kind of standard, not new to these kinds of things. They're all over the world, where the folks would sign off on a waiver and then carry on with the activity. Regarding the managers, we have to have managers whose oversight on these projects are important. If we didn't, people would then be concerned that we're just letting Bird do whatever they want to do, and that's not reasonable. And anytime we have a pilot of any sort, there's always someone looking after it.
Is two people enough? I mean, I hear all the time, Shawn, that people see people making violations on these things all the time and have called for stronger enforcement of e-scooters. Is two enforcement people that the city has enough to do this?
So most our bylaws, and all obviously because the Motor Vehicle Act allows them to be on the road, so largely enforcement of those kind of things would actually be police. Not our bylaw, but bylaw would deal with things like if, people are leaving scooters, abandoned on the sidewalk or,
right,
on public property somewhere. They will deal with those. They also deal with the issues that come forward through 311 complaints, and there's a specific email we have for this pilot program for the city, as well as Bird Canada's email that goes to them. And so these managers also, and the enforcement folks, are responsible for, if we get complaints about, and I had several in my district, one on Shabukta Road, for example, at the new building where we've got a vet clinic, a hair salon, and a tutoring company. And so you had lots of animals and kids and stuff going through here. And so we made some changes there, and our staff asked Bird to actually not place their parking there, to move it to another location. So we respond to those kind of things as well. But on the enforcement side, a lot of it would be things like riding on the sidewalk when they're not supposed to be. So that would largely, again, be police. Not wearing a helmet, that's a personal decision that they're making, and they've signed the waiver. So We don't want the healthcare costs, but, if it's their noggin that gets hit, it's their fault. And so, there's a lot of things that enforcement can do. If we go ahead with an expanded pilot or continue this and we run something, obviously, we would need better enforcement, more enforcement. Again, this is a pilot. And so you don't want to staff up with 10 different people, because then if you cut the program, what do you do with those 10 people? You got to fire them all.
Councillor Kent?
Yeah, same thing. Regarding the number of project leaders on a pilot, this would be very standard. I think that because it's so focused on the ones that are through Bird, we have 311, councillors get calls. We are all sort of watching the activity of these scooters, whether or not they're being left in appropriate spaces, things like that. And we can call those in as well. And rest assured, we are getting those calls. So I think we have enough for now, and time will tell what we're going to need in the future.
Councillor Cleary, the funding model in this pilot, obviously there's a fee people pay to use these things per minute or whatever it is. Does that all go to Bird, and are we shouldering the cost of the project managers, or is there a trade-off there? How does that work?
So with the pilot program, obviously with our employees, the project manager and the enforcement staff, that's our cost. With Bird, depending on how things work out, there's rental fees that come along with the right-of-way. So, whatever they make on their own scooter rentals, that's theirs. But, there will be charges to them for the use of public space that's community-owned. And so those are the things that we'll be looking at. So
Bird's paying the city to put their bikes and their scooters onto the sidewalk?
I'm not sure if that's part of the pilot, but that would be if we rolled it out as a permanent program.
And the enforcement folks and the project managers, were those new hires, or was that existing city staff?
So those, I think one transitioned over.
Right.
But those were the enforcement officers. For example, when we created our bylaw for the scooters, this was something that we added because it wasn't just for the pilot. We were getting, even before the pilot started, with Segway and Halifax Cycle or Halifax e-scooter, we were getting a ton of complaints around those. And so we needed better enforcement, especially on the abandonment of scooters. And so, with the pilot, we knew that this was also going to continue to be an issue. So we kept those enforcement folks.
So there was no net additions of FTEs, this full-time equivalents with this.
I think there might have been one, but I'd have to go back and look at the report.
Councillor Kent?
Yeah, I think that because the municipality is so large and we have so many good active transportation corridors and spaces like that, that's another area that we do tend to see some reckless behavior with these kinds of micromobility. And it has been, I think, top of mind for me in a lot of ways, and I'm sure other councillors, when we get the calls and we hear about these kinds of activities on our networks. And police can't be everywhere. The bylaw officers aren't going to be everywhere. Ultimately, we hope that people will be responsible users, just like we have hopefully responsible motor vehicle use, bicycle use, and the rest. I think there is a bigger picture here that we're going to have to address around the whole policing and proper usage and such for micromobility, and I think that's where we're going. Not sure where we'll land.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number if you'd like to get onto the program. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues after the news. All right, welcome back. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues. On the phone with us today, Councillor Kent. In the studio today, Councillor Cleary, and they're here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phone lines and say hello to Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. Your question, please.
Yeah, my question is about the roundabout for Main Street and Lake Major Road.
Okay.
I don't understand why would you guys do that? I mean, there's already a perfectly good four-way working intersection there with lights. All you'd have to do is on the opposite side of Lake Major Road, redirect the Ross Road to that, it would be less than half a kilometer of roadway, no sewage, no water lines. To do what you guys are proposing, you're going to rip out all the existing infrastructure. You have to buy land from the church, and you're going to disrupt traffic for 4 to 6 weeks at least, whereas you just put the road on the other side of the intersection down the Ross Road, that could be completely done within 2 weeks, ready for asphalt, with minimal obstruction to the current traffic situation. And also a roundabout there is going to cause so much congestion and backup in rush hour. It just makes no sense, especially in a time when we're trying to save money. And instead of just going and building a quick road to Ross Road, you're probably tripling or quadrupling the price.
Okay, Mike, let's let the councillors answer. We'll start with you, Councillor Kent.
I don't really have an answer to that one. I'd have to talk to the local councillor, Purdy and Hensby, on the traffic volume and the movement there. I would certainly use the area, come off Ross Road onto Main Street. It has, I don't recall it being a particularly tough one, but I don't know the traffic well enough for that area to even comment on this one. I can appreciate the concerns around the significant change, and it will take time for people to get used to them. But in general, I'm finding these roundabouts, actually, people are concerned about them, but they actually tend to work very well later once they're in. And excuse me, sorry, I have a little throat thing happening here. But I don't have enough. I just leave it there.
Councillor Cleary, your thoughts on...
Just to put into some
ahead,
context, like that particular spot they want to put the roundabout, that's the only artery in and out of the South Shore. So just to put in context how much traffic goes through there in the run of a day. It's not like putting a roundabout in Bedford or something like, where in the city street. This is the main artery in and out of the Eastern Shore.
Okay.
Thousands of cars.
Councillor Cleary, your thoughts on roundabouts?
There we go. So I'd have to, it's not an area I know well of the city. I know that David Hensby's been talking about this for years and years and years.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think that 107, I believe that's a provincial road. I could be wrong. So I don't know if that was something the province insisted on or if it's part of our realignment project. But in general, roundabouts are safer and move more volume of traffic than signalized intersections do. And so that could have been part of the process when they were thinking about the type of treatment to use for the intersection of the roads. But again, I'd have to defer to David Hensby or someone else. I don't really know this area very well.
Well, what about the cost factor? Like, it's clearly cheaper just to put a road from Ross Road to that intersection than rip out all the infrastructure, buy land from the church, and then build a roundabout. Like, in the time when we're trying to save tax dollars. Yeah,
I just so on that, I think because I think that area is not signalized now. So if you had an intersection, given the volumes of traffic both ways, you'd end up having to signalize it. So my guess, and again, this is only speculation on my part, is that when they looked at fully signalized intersection versus the roundabout won out in terms of flow and safety and speeds.
Thanks, Mike. And I know that Councillor Hensby is an avid listener of the program, and if he lets us know what the decision-making process was on that, he'll and shoots me an email, I'll certainly pass it along. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll go now to Greg. Greg, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Your question, please.
Yes, it's once again, it has to do with traffic. But if you're on Caldwell Road heading towards Cole Harbour Road, where the Walmart and everything is there are two left-turning lanes going on to Cole Harbour Road down towards the city center. And there's the right-hand turning lane going towards Walmart. You find if you get one vehicle going straight through, then there's a big backlog of traffic trying to turn right onto Cole Harbour Road. It seems that it might be a better idea if one of those two traffic lanes that is turning left would have a left turn and a straight arrow through it so that it wouldn't completely backlog traffic wanting to turn right. So that is my question, if somebody could have a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. I'll start with you, Councillor Cleary.
So that was Caldwell and Cole Harbour Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, not my side of the harbor, not anything I'm familiar with. I've driven down there a couple times, but I will definitely pass that along to the local councillor and to our traffic staff because, again, I wouldn't be educated enough in that specific intersection to give you any advice or say whether you're right or wrong. But, Greg, if you drive it, you're probably right.
Right, and then I have too have driven on that part of the road, and I'll agree with Greg. It gets a little bit hairy there, particularly when it gets busy.
It does get backed up there. That's an area that I drive regularly. Going left certainly brings it down into District 3. The whole area from down at Five Corners on Portland all the way out to Bissett Road is being considered under a functional plan for Portland Street. And if I recall, I believe there's some change part of that. It's been a little while. It kind of got sidelined with planning staff working on a lot of other things that were more of a priority. But us as councillors continue to ask, when is that going to come forward? But it does, there will be areas like that will be part of that whole plan, because the goal is to get that traffic all moving in a much more functional way, which has, subsequently a functional plan. So I'd have to take another look at it. But again, I can share with Councillor Purdy as well, because that functional plan affects every district, with the exception of, it would affect Councillor Hensby as well, because they're all traveling out into his district. So, or a lot of them. It's but that's on the table. You might even be able to see that, Greg, if you looked it up on the Halifax website and just put in the search part, Portland Street Functional Plan.
And this might be two different subjects, but on the agenda this week for council, Councillor Purdy has put forth an ask for a review of the complete streets policy. I get that's the active transportation and everything else, in consideration of a maintenance first approach. Would that something this could fit into?
This particular area, I'm not sure. So complete streets are usually looking around things that are a little bit more commercial business oriented, where you have pedestrian oriented streets and that kind of stuff. So making sure that the whole idea of complete streets is everyone feels safe walking, cycling, driving, scootering, rolling in a wheelchair, those kind of things. So it might, but I doubt it, just because of, as I recall, this area is more parking lots and plazas and that kind of stuff.
Councillor Kent?
I would disagree with Shawn on that one. I think we will find that that's the complete streets piece of it is very much part of that. The way he described it is very commercial, very much pedestrian, very active, with a lot of crossing of a very large artery that is getting kids to schools. And there have been a number of accidents, including sadly some fatalities. So I would say that if it's not already being at least looked through from that lens, it would be important that it does. I'm not quite sure what Councillor Purdy is getting at, if it's very specific to her district or if it's the whole plan that she has problems with. But that area definitely has those considerations in it.
Thanks, Greg. Great question. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillor Cleary.
And I have an update. As you predicted, Hensby's listening.
Figured as much.
So he's been texting me. So that area has been signalized since 1996. Thanks for the correction, David. Also, because it is a considerable fast speedway, folks often traveling well above the 60, the realignment needs the roundabout to make things safer and slow things down as people go through the intersection.
Clarity from Hensby and gets to point out you made a mistake, Shawn. Go figure, right?
Well, because, and I've heard this from David forever, it's dangerous to pull out of the Ross Road in the current configuration. And so realigning it, especially with a roundabout, will obviously make it safer for everyone.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues after the break. That is the number. Are we there? There, that sounds better. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the hot seat continues. We got lots of calls here, so let's try to get to as many as we can. And we'll start with Sandra. Sandra, how are you?
Oh, good. Fine, thank you. I want to ask the councillors today about the recent fare increase that was accepted and the complete lack of monitoring and enforcement of the transit fare policy. And what I mean by that is, one example is the student fare passes that are given to the junior and high school students.
Right.
Half of these passes have already been sold by the students, and you have the working population entering these buses every day and showing a student pass, and they get on and they ride because there's no monitoring or enforcement of the fare policy. And it's the same with all the other passes that are available, whether it's the university passes, the Welcome in Halifax passes that are given by the provincial government. They're expired and they're not being used by the people they were issued to. And Halifax Transit does not do anything to try to enforce the policy. And I think that, one example could be at the terminals. They recently hired supervisors to work these terminals, and those supervisors, could be at the buses when the passengers are getting on and doing, some monitoring and enforcement. That way you may not have to increase the fare because at any given time, there's 20 to 30% of the riders on a bus have not paid their fare. And I'm not talking about the homeless, someone that needs a ride. I'm talking about the working class people that are fraudulently using these passes every day. And it's going on for years, and transit has never forced their fare policy. And as well, they tell bus drivers, and we're the only ones that can monitor it because we see them enter the bus and paying the fare. They're told constantly not to enforce it because they're afraid of drivers being assaulted. So I don't understand why these increases keep happening when there is such a lack of fare enforcement in this transit system. So I would just like your comments on that.
Appreciate the question, Sandra. I'll start with you, Councillor Cleary. Could we not solve this whole thing by the technology that we've been talking about for years, and that's the scanners that you tap in or you tap out?
So we already have the app that you can pay. And in fact, the last quarterly KPI report that came in, a Transportation Standing Committee, I think was 65% of fares are being paid by the app. And so actually, to Sandra's point, that's a made-up number, 20 to 30% of people haven't paid, not from the research we have from transit. And so it's a very small minority of people that are fraudulently using passes or what kind of thing. So anyway, we this summer we'll have the tap to pay as well. So now you've got the app, now you've got tap to pay, you've got cash, you've got paper, and you've got passes. And passes are a minority of fares getting onto buses and ferries. So it's not really a big issue. And for bus drivers, they shouldn't be enforcing fares. That's not their job. Their job is to drive buses.
And who enforces it then?
Well, so just like who enforces our speeding laws? Well, police do. Well, do you see people speeding and not getting pulled over on the highway? Of course you do.
All the time, right?
Exactly. So just because something's happening doesn't mean it's a huge problem. Now, speed kills, and we don't want speeding. People beating fares, as it's sometimes called, is not something you want. But it is a minority. It's a very small proportion of the overall ridership. And so it's not the big issue that we need to be solving at the moment. If you have a person who is saying, let's say because we allow kids up to 12 free on the bus. Clearly someone gets on, they might look 13, 14, and you're like, I don't know. If they don't have money on them and they have to lie and say, I'm actually just 12, take pity on them and let them on the friggin' bus. It's a ridiculous conversation to keep having over and over again. It is a very small problem in the overall thing. I'll also just back up and say I didn't vote for the fare increase. I don't support the fare increase. I don't think that's something we should be doing at this time. Obviously, a majority of councils disagreed with me. But in terms of fare policy enforcement, it's an issue. The technology will largely make it irrelevant, and it's not that big an issue in the grand scheme of things for transit.
Councillor Kent?
Hi, yes. I think Sean's right. The app is certainly going to be helpful there. We've got the new system that's coming online. Totally agree with him around if someone comes on and they express that they have no money or they have are pushing the limit, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is grown adults who are just creating mischief. But that's also very much a low percentage. I believe, if I recall correctly, we put a lot of votes through last week. I supported the transit increase because our jurisdiction here is we're already below the standard as far as transit fares. I think even with a rate increase, we are still below the standard across the country. So I can live with that. It is an area where we do have capacity to, consider in our budget deliberations to bring the property tax down a bit. But at the end of the day, the policing is just it's on your honor, and I agree. I don't want our transit drivers to be put in the position of having to police any of that. They're there to drive. They're there to get people to their destinations on time. Having to police it not only would potentially cause friction in a situation like that, it would also delay the route, and then people would be upset that, one, they didn't get to their destination, or second, the bus wasn't there when the others on the other end of that route locations would not have been able to get to where they were going. So it's more complex than just saying somebody needs to police it.
But it wouldn't the people that follow the rules pay the price in that case, right? Because they're paying their fare.
But I think that's a systemic thing around a lot of situations where those of us who continue to drive well and hopefully not have accidents are not the ones out there speeding and crashing cars, but yet our insurance is going up. It's very similar, the same scenario. It's like Sean said, the number of people who are causing the mischief do create a scenario where we all pay for it. This is not one I'm willing to die. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on for that.
Councillor Kent, very quickly, the province, of course, ending the funding for that free pass program. Is that dead in the city now? Can the municipality afford to keep that going?
Not sure. We've had enough conversation around that. As we continue with the budget, we'll have to see where we land. I'm very disappointed in the province for doing that. There's a lot of cuts that they've put forward that I think are going to gut and devastate a lot of departments and a lot of the supports that should be there for the people who need them, and the departments who are putting out good programs for access to funding to support not-for-profits and such. And the transit's only one of them. What I think is more devastating for me as a taxpayer as well is that we are seeing all these cuts to the departments that they hacked and slashed, but yet they all are still purporting that they're doing all these wonderful big projects. And for me, it's on the backs of all these cuts that they've made.
Councillor Cleary, can we keep the free pass program going without provincial funding?
So it's a discussion we're going to have. I'm hoping the province changes its mind. It's an extremely valuable program for the students who are using it. We know that the number of people using transit in general, going to school, was about 11%, went up to 33% on a regular basis. But then actually, if you look at the numbers of students who are using it, not just for school, but for jobs, for recreation, it increased even more so. And so it's a great program for those kids to build ridership and lifelong affinity for transit. So I'm hoping they change their mind, but we have until, I think, September to figure it out, because I think the passes that are under the current year, they go through until the next school year starts.
Councillor Kent, what's happening in District 3?
Oh, District 3, I think people are lining up for their March break. This is the time when things slow down coming into the March break and into some time, family time. There's not a lot of activities going on that are beyond that, but District 3 is in good shape. We're going to enjoy this beautiful day and be happy that I think spring is starting to spring.
Careful. I'm going to hold you to
Don't
that.
jinx it. I'm knocking on wood.
Councillor Cleary, what's happening in District number 9?
Well, the biggest thing that's happening now with all the snow melt are the treasures people are finding on the verge and on the medians, as we and especially in front of businesses on Quinpool that have been in there for the last couple of months. No, you know what? Things are pretty good. Lots of folks getting out on the trails. Get out on the Chain of Lakes Trail today. Go get some nice exercise and get a breath of fresh air on a day like today.
Appreciate you coming in, Sean. And Becky, appreciate you joining us on the phone. Councillors on the hot seat, of course, every Monday here on the Todd Veinotte Show from 10 to 11 o'clock. Have a great day, everybody. We're going to take a break for the news. When we come back, it's time for the first open hour of the week. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Open hour after the news. Welcome back. It's time for the open hour. The telephone lines, folks, are now open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255, and they're wide open if you want an opportunity to get in and start the conversation. Here's a glorious one for you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. You just listened to an hour-long segment with our councillors on the hot seat, wide-ranging number of topics that were discussed there. I have to admit, the councillors' response to the fare, the bus fare question was quite interesting to me. Right? We had a caller that called up that is obviously in the know and suggested that there's an awful lot of people trying to skip the fare. Let's just say not paying the fare, using expired passes, using passes that aren't designated for them. And the city bus drivers are told not to enforce the rules. So if somebody just comes on and says, "Sorry, I don't have any money," then the councillors are good with them getting on the bus. I understand that people are in different situations, but does that seem right to you? Because it doesn't to me. If I'm a paying passenger on a Halifax Transit bus, right? I follow the rules. I pay my dues. Getting those monthly passes is not inexpensive, right? I think they're $80 or $90 a piece, are they not, Vanessa? You have student passes are $80 or $90 a piece. Like it's not cheap, but at least you're following the rules. And councillors say, well, you know, there's a small number of people who take advantage of the system, and they don't want to get the bus drivers into a rough situation, and I can appreciate that part. And this just goes back to my long-standing argument with Halifax Transit, is that we need a system that is fair. It doesn't seem fair if you can just tell somebody, well, my pass is expired, I don't have any money. Then they just let them get on the bus. That is efficient, and we know that it's not at this point. And to council's credit, they're working on that, right? We're talking about the BRT, the Rapid Transit Program. But it has to be better than getting in a car, and it isn't at this point. And it's got to be safe. I think that's the number one priority. You could have the best transit system in the world. It can be efficient. It can be faster. It can be cheaper in the long run if you're not paying for your car. But if it's not safe, if you get on the bus and you feel like there's a problem, or if transit drivers feel it's a problem, and people are flouting the rules, then I don't think people ride the bus. And if you're a paying Halifax Transit customer and you find that even if it's 10%, even if it's 5%, 5 of every 100 people on that bus aren't paying their fare, That just doesn't seem right to me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. A couple of emails very quickly before we go to the phone lines. Some of the comments from councillors, from the councillors on the hot seat. We were talking about parking, and Councillor Cleary made the point that if it was up to him, that he would try and get approval from the province to start to charge parking fees for big parking lots like those found in shopping areas like Bears Lake. Ken writes, are the parking lots at Bears Lake privately owned and not owned by HRM? If so, how could HRM tax for parking on private parking lots? I think that is a very fair question. Councillor Cleary also making comments today on the program about the e-scooters. We had a long conversation about e-scooters and how it's a personal decision for the users of these e-bikes and e-scooters not to wear a helmet, and says, that's up to them. If they crank their noggin, then that's their problem. Mark writes, Shawn Cleary is 1,000,000,000% wrong. When you have an accident and someone cracks their noggin, the severity of the accident is part of the penalty. If you accidentally kill someone who's not wearing a helmet, that's on you as the driver of a vehicle. If that kid's wearing a helmet and doesn't die, your penalty is less severe. Shawn Cleary is 1,000,000,000% wrong on this one. Mark writes, I get so frustrated listening to these councillors talk about how taxpayers here in Nova Scotia should just suck it up and pay more. Shawn says if he had its ways, taxpayers would be charged for parking in areas like Bears Lake. Well, Shawn, maybe instead we could drop these wasteful bike lanes and suck up millions of dollars. How we cut these districts in half and amalgamate them. We have a provincial government trying to give Nova Scotians a break by opening up parking in hospitals, and you guys want more parking fees. Ridiculous and out of touch. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 to the phones, and we say hello to Anne. Anne, how are you?
I just had a quick comment
Sure.
about the Metro Transit.
Sure.
And I believe the caller that was talking about the fraudulent use of the passes is pretty accurate. I think she's coming from the front line and recognizing it. And it is frustrating. And I think it's a little bit, maybe a little callous to not recognize that from the perspective of the councillors. But I wanted to comment specifically about the fare increase, which, was compared to other jurisdictions. Our service is not comparable to other jurisdictions, so I think that a lot of people may balk at the fact that, somebody will say that the fare is comparable to Ontario or Toronto or Ottawa. Our service is not comparable. It is, at this point, still a work in progress, and it's a little frustrating to be confronted also with a fare increase. That's just my opinion.
And opinions are welcome here, Anne. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. My latest understanding, and I will admit that there are still lots of things happening with regards to the budget, but my latest understanding is that we're going to see a 25-cent increase on September 21st for the fares on buses. It's to coincide with the rollout to the tap-to-pay service. To Anne's point, if you've been on transit anywhere else, well, I shouldn't say anywhere else, in a number of different jurisdictions around the world, you know that the tap-on, tap-off, or tap-in system has been used for several years now, if not decades, or at least a decade. Right? You can use a designated card. If you've been to Toronto, you know that they have their Presto card, right? In London, England, it's the Oyster card. In other places, they have designated cards that you can load with money, and then you just walk on and you tap to get onto the bus, or you tap to get through the turnstile if it's and we don't have them here, but if you have a subway. And that's how the fares are administered. No, nothing's 100% efficient, right? There's always ways to job the system. But it just felt like the response was just arms up in the air. Well, there's nothing that we can do about it, and we really shouldn't be challenging people for not following the rules. And I don't know about you, but that just doesn't sit right with me. I feel that if I, and I'll be frank, I haven't been a transit user for several years. But I know if I was, and I was following the rules and paying my fares and absorbing that expense every month, to know that if our caller's correct, up to 30%, even if it's half of that, 15 out of every 100 riders isn't paying their fare. We're in a revenue situation, folks. And I know that the bus fare's not a lot. And I know that all transit systems around the world are subsidized. But does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back after the break. Welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number to join the program. Of course, folks, regular rules apply. This is an open hour. You can chat about whatever it is on your mind. But we're having a brief conversation here on the comments on surrounding Metro Transit, or I shouldn't say Metro Transit, Halifax Transit. And a significant number of people, at least according to one of our callers, who aren't paying their fares. And the councillor saying, well, it happens, and maybe we shouldn't put our drivers into a dangerous situation by enforcing those rules. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We say hello now to Lee. Lee, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I am well. What's on your mind?
A little bit furious, to say the least, when I was listening to the councillors this morning, and I was listening to this discussion about the buses and finding out that apparently there's such a large percentage of users not paying their share of fares, and yet my taxes are going up and up and up, and I'm being told that if I do want to utilize the bus, I'm going to have to start paying more because I'm a law-abiding citizen who actually does pay the fare.
Doesn't feel right, does it?
That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, let me tell you something. I come from Ottawa, and the bus system in Ottawa, not only do they not have this issue with people skipping fares, but in Ottawa, in order to make things quicker and faster for the people using the bus, you can get on the bus by the back door,
right,
or the side door, or the front door. And the way that they've done that is they simply have employed some people, to come in, and they do the inspections, and they walk through the bus, and they say, hey, show me your bus pass, or hey, show me your transfer. And if you don't have a bus pass or a transfer, it's a $400 and some odd fine. So, I can understand what the councillors are saying, that we don't want to put bus drivers in an awkward situation or potentially be attacked by an angry customer. Why not employ some of our bylaw officers to patrol those bus routes and to just have them come on the bus and check to make sure that people have paid, or if they haven't paid, to have them removed. Absolutely ridiculous. I think the program would pay for itself if that many people not paying their fare. Wouldn't you agree?
100%, Lee. I've been saying it for years that we need to have some kind of enforcement on the bus.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and it goes to your safety issue as well, right? Like,
right.
If I'm driving the bus now and the bus driver doesn't want to get involved over somebody not paying the fare, what's the bus driver going to do if somebody, God forbid, has a knife, or somebody decides they want to throw a punch at somebody? Is the bus driver going to sit there and say, I'm sorry, I don't want to get involved? And then people are supposed to feel safe being on that bus? It's crazy.
Thanks, Lee.
Have a good day, sir.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm trying to think of where it was. I want to say that it was Las Vegas. On a trip to Las Vegas, you buy passes there, and you can buy them. They're hourly, or I think you can buy a multi-day, like a 3-day or a 5-day or a 7-day, and you get a card, right? So that you don't even have to tap. You just carry the card with you. But they have random checks, and they have actual people. And I think it was Transport for London in London, England too, where they will go through and they will put a person on board the bus or the train, and will ask for your card or your pass and scan it. And if you're good to go, then, the old saying, Bob your uncle, and off you go. But if you're not, then you're subject to a severe fine. and I wonder what the uptake on that is. They're not on every bus or every train, but there's enough randomness that you would be concerned, I think, if you were, trying to beat the system. Anyway, just my thoughts. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Judy.
Hi, Dan. How are you this morning?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
I wanted to make a comment on bike lanes,
Sure.
if I could, and specifically, I think the actions of our current city councillors are both illogical and irresponsible in terms of pouring money into these bike lanes. And two things strike me. One, we are not living in California where people can ride bikes 12 months of the year. There are at least 4 months of the year here where people cannot ride bikes, particularly not ride them safely. Secondly, given the decentralized nature of the HRM, who in their right mind would think that someone from Tantallon is going to ride a bike all the way downtown to work or from Sackville? It just doesn't make sense. I believe that their focus, if they're trying to reduce the number of cars on the road, should be on improving our transit system. That can be used 12 months of the year, and it can be used by people who live in the outskirts of the HRM. So as a taxpayer, every time I hear them mention bike lanes, the hair on the back of my neck stands up thinking this is absolutely ridiculous. So that's my comment, Dan.
Judy, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think it was last week when Councillor Steele was in the studio. We were chatting off the air. It was before the show or during one of the breaks. Anyway, my example of the problem, I think, is Lower Water Street, or at least Water Street, right? In downtown Halifax. If you go down Water from like the Discovery Center heading, it's one way, so you only can go one way, heading towards the Marriott, right? Where the bus or the Tim Hortons is in the bus and that kind of thing. It's an example of, I think, of what the problem is with our transit or with our mobility system here, is that I think council's trying to do something for everybody. If you go down Water, it's a 2-lane road that is one way. So you've got 2 lanes of traffic. The left-hand lane, half of that lane is eaten up by on-street parking. The right-hand lane, half of that lane is eaten up by a protected bike lane. Not to mention that particular roadway carries truck traffic coming from Halterm or leaving Halterm. So you had a 2-lane road that is now essentially 1 1/4, maybe 1.5 lanes wide, with transport trucks, bike lanes, and on-street parking. I think council would do well to focus on congestion. I think we all know that that's a problem. But I think the council would do well to focus on fixing one area first. Using our last caller, Judy's comment, maybe transit is the place that we look first. Let's fix transit. And then once transit's fixed, then we can fix bike lanes or active transportation. But I think we're trying to do something for everybody and doing a half-arsed job at it. Pick one, focus on it until it's fixed, and then focus on something else. Does that make any sense? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are back to the phones after the news. Welcome back. Open Hour continues. Lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. And again, regular rules apply, everybody. You can bring whatever it is on your mind to the Open Hour, and we'll certainly listen to your thoughts. We've been having a discussion about transit fares on the heels of some comments made by our councillors on the hot seat this day. Earlier in the show, suggesting that that there is a percentage, albeit a smaller percentage of people that is or are not paying their fares, and transit drivers not being encouraged to not interact. I got an email that reads like this. Good morning, Dan. I was listening to Shawn Cleary on the radio this morning where he made mention that bus drivers are not responsible for monitoring the fare input or structure, whatever you want to call it. I'm a bus driver with Halifax Transit. It's in our job description to manage the fare. Anyone can look this up online under our job description. Furthermore, I don't know if it was Shawn or yourself who said we're just being told to ignore inappropriate situations where people don't pay their fare, abuse the system. Again, that is not true. At least I haven't been told that would be like telling us not to do our job. Don't get me wrong. I believe we should use some common sense where we're allowing some people to pay their fare the next day if they misplaced it or something like that. I've been working with transit for a long time. And I do remember the days when supervisors used to come onto the bus and inspect passes, and it worked well. The driver simply doesn't have time to do this. So a little perspective on our conversation. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Peggy.
Hi there. Good morning.
What's on your mind?
I am calling about the transit as well, and I think that a lot of what the discussion is around is that Halifax is underinvested in transit for a long time and continues to. And one of the matters that isn't really in many people's minds right now is the fact that the province and the city are working together to spend $200 million to widen Robie Street.
Right.
And this involves demolishing 50 to 70 affordable homes, cutting 80 trees to add a second bus lane. This is unnecessary for bus rapid transit or for light rail. There's many cities in the world where they don't widen, most cities don't widen roads, and what they effectively do is they use the existing road space to allocate it as it's needed. And that's like the McDonald Bridge or Shabukdo Road, or upcoming will be Herring Cove Road, where they have signalized lane changes. It can be time of day, or it can be in the moment. If there's a bus arrives, the cars stop and the bus moves into the lane. The bus gets priority. So what we see happening is at the same time that the city and the province are spending $200 million, we're in a very, very tight financial situation. And the province cut the $1.1 million subsidy for kids to have a bus pass at the same time as the city is increasing bus fare. The $200 million is unnecessary, not just because it's not needed for bus rapid transit or light rail. It's unnecessary because the city's own data shows there is no delay for transit in the section between Kennard and North. That's the area that's most heavily impacted. The city's data also projects, and most of this is imaginative. They don't really do a great job of imagining time savings. But at peak hours, each bus will save 2 minutes on the whole length of the bus rapid transit street for Robie. That's $200 million for a savings of 2 minutes.
Per bus, though, right, Peggy?
Yes, per bus, but
right.
You're only on one bus. You're not on every bus.
Right, but if you look at it system-wide, I mean, it's going to be 2 minutes per bus, and that's a busy corridor, right?
Well, it is a busy corridor, but it's not so busy that they don't have capacity to fill that corridor with buses that are out of service heading back down to start their routes again. So one of the problems is that we're talking about this niggly detail about isn't this busy there or isn't that busy there. The city has never presented a plan to the public. This is just a segment. We know that the federal government has changed its funding for transit. We know the province has no new funding for transportation in this budget. And we know we're in a housing crisis, and we know that the city had to really, really figure out how to finagle the finances to buy 10 new buses. people ought to be very, very upset that we're looking at this project to unnecessarily widen Roby Street. We haven't seen any details on it on. The local councillor, Virginia Hinch, put forward a motion to the CAO. She said, let's re-examine the widening of Roby Street. Let's see what's going on. What are the financial implications? What would happen if we cancel? They all went in camera to have a discussion. And when they emerged, they talked about the good conversation that they had.
Right.
And only Virginia Hinch and Patty Cuddle and Trish Purdy supported Virginia's motion. Why aren't we having the good conversation publicly where experts can weigh in? There are many experts. And I'm with a group called Friends of Halifax Common, and you can go to our website, halifaxcommon.ca, and we've got some experts. They're nothing to do with Friends of Halifax Common. There's Pam Cooley, who brought car share to Halifax. There's Dr. Kathy Chervin. She's a very, very respected retired physician who talks about the emissions related to increased traffic, which is what we'll get when we widen the road. There's Ben Weber, who's a transportation expert who has been with EAC and is now independent. Each of those people say very, very specific reasons why widening roads is not a solution. And that's in addition to the Halifax's own data of not needing to widen the road. So just for all your listeners, I would really encourage them. You can go to our Friends of Halifax Common Facebook. There's a link to write to the province and the councillors. Tomorrow, council is debating capital expenditures. Roby Street doesn't get money until 2028. In those 2 years, what the city ought to be doing is reoccupying the empty homes. There's probably 30 to 35 homes in these multi-unit buildings that are empty. They should all be having people living in them. One is a First Nations home, 7 units, all entirely newly renovated, empty since last year. 23% of homeless people in Halifax identify as First Nations. So the glib, fast solutions of raising fares or cutting student passes are really distractions from the core issue is, what are we doing with our money that is going for transit? Why aren't we seeing what the integrated plan is? And why would we destroy a community unnecessarily?
Peggy, I have a very quick question, Peggy.
Sure.
Roby Street is a busy corridor, right? Buses go in and out both during rush hours and opposed during rush hours. How does directional traffic fix that?
Directional traffic. I'm not talking about directional traffic.
You're talking about controlling the lanes, right? You're talking about lights like the bridge. You said it earlier.
That was one way that traffic can be controlled with lights. I said that's time of day.
Right.
There's also transit priority, which is in the moment. It's an example that's used, an example is in Zurich, Switzerland. If there's actually they have bi-directional transit lanes. So if there's a bus coming in one direction and a bus coming to meet it, they have signals and they have pull rounds like you would have in trains. You know, it's been around for centuries. And the idea of what we need right now is not even off concern because you identify Roby Street as being a very busy transit. But in the section north of Kennard, there is no delay. It is not a substantial delay. Traffic flows, buses flow. The northbound bus has its own bus lane. It's not being delayed. The southbound bus is not delayed. And these are all things that we just need more imagination about how can we deal with even what we are forecasting for a growing city. And it doesn't involve demolishing housing. It doesn't involve cutting trees. Councillor Cleary talks about we're going to have more trees. We know that the city just looked at cutting the budget for trees, and they've cut it for the last 3 years. One of these trees, like a tree 1 meter around, that's not a big person. So if you can imagine a person being 1 meter, it takes about 279 saplings to replace that tree. It's not the case we're going to have more trees. Councillor Cleary talks about we're going to have
All right,
more.
Peggy, I'm up against the break. I appreciate it, okay?
Okay.
Have a good
one. Thank you. Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phone lines. Josh has been holding for a long time. I appreciate it, Josh.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Loud and clear, sir. What's on your mind?
I just heard some of your callers calling in about like transit folks and bylaw going in, checking tickets, anyone disruptive or anything like that, give them a ticket, escort them off, and sometimes there might be use of force that has to be applied and stuff like that. People aren't aware that the bylaw officers for HRM aren't equipped to do any of that, really, except for having like a conversation that may de-escalate it through some verbal training. They have a T-shirt, and that's about it. No protective vests. Transit supervisors have protective vests, but I don't think they have any authority to effectively detain anybody. So we are talking about is sometimes summary offense tickets, which you have to basically gather somebody's information, identity. So at that effective time, if you're going to issue a ticket to enforce something, you have to detain somebody to get that information. Right now, a bylaw officer goes up to somebody to say, for instance, have an off-leash dog. They just say, screw you, and walk away, and there's nothing that can be done. So there's a lot of structure that has to be built here if the public wants a system like that. Like, for example, in Alberta, Edmonton, and Calgary, they have what's called transit peace officers or community peace officers.
Right.
They're effectively a second-tier police service, and the police out there want it. So they basically have everything a police has for equipment and training except for a sidearm, service pistol, and they do those type of jobs. And sometimes what they deal with requires police intervention because of the elevated threat with someone produces a knife and whatnot. I mean, they carry a taser, but that's not always 100% effective. So we're dealing with like communication stuff, hiring people like that, getting equipment, getting training, stuff like that. So that's a very, and especially with the city, there's legal parameters around that. Then you have court dates that back up the court. So it's a provincial thing as well. So people aren't going to get that service with transit with regards to enforcement unless they hire more police officers in our police service here to effectively do that job, unless there's some other training that they want to give the bylaw officers and whatnot. So I just want to give people bylaw officers here have a T-shirt and a smile. That's basically it. So I don't know what they expect. They're hardworking people, but they can only do so much for what they're given and what's the expectation of service. So I just want to put that out there.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Have a good day.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That all being said, I think that Josh is onto something there. I think that if we are truly going to make an effort to make transit used, to allow transit to be used, it's got to be safe. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to put people on the buses. Now, all of the things that Josh said I'll take his word for it. And I think you can understand that you would need some additional training for somebody than other than just writing a ticket, right? But if we don't make it safe and make sure that everybody are following the rules, then are we ever going to fix transit? Hello, Sydney.
Hello. Do you think the country of Canada just alone should open up a multi-trillion-dollar lawsuit against Trump and Israel over the war in Iran for the extra cost they're inflicting on every person this past week that it is not an official war because Congress did not approve it. So it has to be classified as Trump's little war. And so he's responsible, and he should be paying the high, because we're paying higher everything costs, he should be held responsible for the extra cost, personally.
That's an interesting theory. I don't know the law, Sydney. I don't know if you can sue a president, can you?
I don't know if we can sue a president, but he's the one that started the war. So let's put him on the hot seat. He wants us to. He's the one that gave us tariffs. We didn't ask for him.
All right, Sydney.
Make him pay for where his mouth is.
Appreciate the call, Sydney. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-825. I don't know what the law is. I know that they're the president of the United States, and I think that heads of state are exempt from lawsuits while they're serving. I know there was a lot of discussion about that during Trump's first presidency about him facing legal ramifications while he was sitting in the Oval Office. Anyway, the war certainly does continue, and it doesn't have any signs of letting up at this point. I was just checking before we came back from the break. Oil prices, WTI is at just under $101. Brent crude's $103. Gasoline right now is 6.5% higher than it was on Friday. So it is certainly going to impact us all. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that here on the program during this week to see what this could mean. There are some scary numbers out there, and to be quite honest, I don't know if a lot of them are, as what did Shawn Cleary call them, made-up numbers. But there's a lot of scary numbers out there with regards to what this war could mean when it comes to oil prices, when it comes to inflation. And what we know that we have some of the highest food inflation rates in the country right here in Atlantic Canada, right? I think the last number was 9%. Now we've just tacked on 19 cents or more on a liter of diesel fuel. And we know that everything that gets put on a shelf here at a grocery store, at a store, comes on a truck. Right? So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that by the time you go to get your groceries, maybe this week or next, you're going to start to see increases in price. I'm also hearing that the cost of travel is likely to go up, right? We know March break is right around the corner. It's next week, I do believe. And at least for elementary and high school kids. And many of you plan to travel, and I'm wondering how long it's going to be, if it isn't already in effect, that airlines start putting fuel surcharges on again because of the cost of. I hear jet fuel is crazy expensive, and there really is no sign of this thing happening or ending yet. And really, I mean, if you watched, and I didn't watch its entirety because, to be honest, I don't know if I could watch a whole interview with them, but I watched some of the highlights with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, on 60 Minutes, and the typical political answers that just kind of dance around the questions, right? I get it. And I know that he's going to say, and the President of the United States is going to say, well, we're not going to tell you when this thing's going to end. We wouldn't tell the enemy when that's going to happen. I don't think we want dates and hours, but at least a goalpost. Some say this could be another couple weeks. Some could say it could be much longer. Some that say this could be protracted and it could last for a long, long time. Just think about this, folks, and I'll leave you with this before we go to the break. The Iranians are launching $20,000 drones at Gulf states in the Persian Gulf region. It's costing $2 or $3 or $4 million, depending on the weapons, defensive weapon that they're using to knock these things down. Right? Not a very economical gain for those countries and for the United States. I saw a stat here during the open hour. It was on CNN. This is in American money. That the war right now in Iran, is costing $890 million a day. We're back after the news. Welcome back as we roll into hour number 3 here on the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand, and it's almost like there's news overload these days, right? We know that there's the all the stuff that's happening here locally in HRM. We got the HRM budget, we've got the reaction to the provincial budget, and the ongoing fallout from that, and then of course there's all of the world's attention is happening right now in Iran as the war there continues. It continues to escalate. It has no signs of slowing down at all, and that is having an effect not only in the region but on the global stage, with the price for oil at I think it's 3-year highs, if not higher, and that of course impacting the price for diesel fuel here in Nova Scotia. We saw a 19-cent increase. We've seen a significant increase in gasoline prices. Chances are, and I don't have any inside information, but chances are if oil prices continue to rise as they have been, then we're going to see continued rise in the price for gasoline, the price for diesel, and that, of course, impacts the cost of goods, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Throughout most of this, the Prime Minister traveling, he was in Australia and in that part of the world, of course, trying to cobble together nations for trade and so on and so forth. Now, as announced, that we're going to see 3 by-elections to fill vacant seats in the House of Commons. It's a busy time to keep your eyes on what's going on. Very pleased to welcome back to the show political scientist Laurie Turnbull. Laurie, how are you?
Great. How are you?
You're busy, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is not a dull time.
No.
Whew.
It's March break, and people want to get it. Well, March break here next week, and people want to take a rest, but I don't think you're going to see many people flowing too far away from the news channels.
I know. Yeah, we just can't at this point. There's too much going on.
All right. There's lots to talk about. Let's talk about the last thing first, and that is the by-elections that were announced on the weekend. The Prime Minister announcing 3 by-elections. Do these by-elections, will this give him enough ammunition to perhaps form a majority government?
Maybe. I mean, it's really high stakes. Like, there's going to be 3 by-elections at once. 2 of them are about as safe as seats the Liberals are going to get, right? The one in University Rosedale, which was Chrystia Freeland's seat, that's a Liberal seat. She was winning that by huge margins. And Scarborough Southwest is also, as you know, a total slam dunk Liberal seat. Like, they lost it to the NDP back in 2011 when the Liberals just totally, got bombed, right? And so they only had 34 seats. They lost that one. But otherwise, it's been Liberal for years and years. And so I don't think they've got any worries about those. The key, although never take the voter for granted. Parties have found that out the hard way. Right. But I think that they can probably count on those. The key is going to be Terrebonne in Quebec, which is about half hour outside of Montreal. And this was one that it's typically been a Bloc Québécois seat. Looked like the Liberals won it, there by the smallest of margins. But then something happened where there was a vote discovered, mail-in ballot didn't get there, and it was a vote for the Bloc. And so the Supreme Court decided to throw that result out. And so that's going to be the cliffhanger. That's going to be the one everybody's following to the end of the night.
The House of Commons is to gather later on this evening to have an emergency debate on the ongoing situation in Iran. Laurie, are these kind of debates, are these just the show for the cameras, or can real decisions be made here?
Well, I mean, that's it, right? Like the House having a debate on this is not necessarily going to change anything about how the government responds to this. It doesn't bind the Prime Minister, and my understanding is he's actually not even going to be there. But it's an opportunity for people to say what they want to say about it. And what that means is going to be very interesting, I think, as the evening unfolds. I'm interested to see particularly what the Liberal MPs have to say about it, because the word here in Ottawa is that there's a lot of people inside that caucus who are not happy with the Prime Minister's approach to handling this. And even his immediate statements around being in support of, I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but essentially backing what the U.S. was doing. And a lot of MPs didn't like that and wanted to be consulted on that. And so what happens inside the Liberal caucus room on Wednesday morning here in Ottawa is going to be interesting. But because then you'll hear that, behind closed doors, they'll be more frank with the Prime Minister. I think he'll have a very, very interesting conversation. But tonight, what MPs are going to want their constituents to hear, right? And how they're going to manage all of that, whether anything comes of it. It's going to be a very spirited conversation.
Politically, this is a bit of a dance, I would imagine, for both the Prime Minister and for the Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre. The Conservatives come out very quickly in support of the American operations. Canada's approach a little bit more measured, and then Prime Minister Carney kind of backing back some of his comments throughout his trip to Australia and to that part of the world. This with the elephant in the room, of course, being our relationship with the United States. It's a slippery slope, right?
Yes, because obviously, as the Prime Minister, Mr. Carney has to, his words come across having a different weight, right, having a different meaning. Pierre Poilievre's words are about intent. What would he do if he were Prime Minister? And what might he try to talk to the Prime Minister about? But for Prime Minister Carney, his word is setting Canadian foreign policy agenda. And we can see as he's traveling, he did kind of walk back some stuff. And at first he didn't seem to want to. In the press conference he had with the Australian Prime Minister, when journalists were asking him, would you take that back? Would you go back and revise your previous statement? And would you call for everybody to kind of calm down and try to get their powder dry? And he says, no, I wouldn't revise my statement. But then later on, he kind of seems to move toward that. And so I think he's sort of trying to do a number of things at once. He's trying to signal to allies that we're a reliable partner. And in the event that there was an allied approach, I think that's what he means when he says that he wouldn't necessarily count out the possibility of Canadian involvement. But that doesn't mean we're going to go throw boots on the ground with the U.S. right now, right? That's not what he's saying. But there's so many different ways to parse it. And I think, honestly, he's still in CEO mode. To me, he's still speaking as though he's speaking for the decision he's taking on behalf of everybody. And yes, he's the Prime Minister, but he still has to shop this stuff around as a politician. It's a different kind of mandate. And I think he's still adjusting to having to get some input on things before he actually makes a decision.
He said that we would support, the Prime Minister said that we would support our allies if that makes sense. What kind of political fallout would there be if Canada gets dragged into this through Article 5 of the NATO Accords or on its own? Do you think that would not land well with Canadians?
Canadians aren't necessarily all going to be of one mind on it. We're not of one mind on everything at all. There's always going to be a difference of opinion. However, I think it would be a very difficult thing for the Prime Minister to try to bring Canadians on side for. It's one thing for him to go to Davos and say, you know what, we've got to show up a little bit smarter. We've got to be more, we have to have more diverse trading partners. Maybe we're going to have to trade with some people who with some places where the leadership is not practicing the values that we want, right? This might get uncomfortable sometimes. It's one thing for him to say that. It's quite another thing for him to say that Canadian lives are going to be put on the line for something that, again, many people are pointing to the illegality of these actions on the part of the U.S. and Israel. So I think it's going to be a very difficult sell. It's the type of thing that I would think, you know what, you don't have a mandate for that at this point, right? It's the type of thing that I would think he'd go to election over, but that's going to be a whole other bag of mess too, right? So I'm not sure where this is going to land, but I don't think in this moment there's a sense of a political mandate for him to take that action.
War in Iran, obviously. Sorry, Laurie. The war in Iran obviously is sucking a lot of the oxygen out of everything these days. We know that there's a deadline approaching for negotiations on Kuzma. Do you think that impacts that trade deal at all? The president's kind of distracted.
He's distracted, but at the same time, I think probably part of what the Prime Minister is trying to do is not throw things off too much in terms of those Kuzma negotiations, put out some kind of foreign policy statement around the situation in Iran that acknowledges that Iran's the bad guy here. And to that extent, yes, we supported the denuclearization of that country because they're a threat to all of us. But he's sort of trying to thread a needle there. And I think, to some extent anyway, not entirely, but to some extent, because he doesn't want to throw off Kuzma negotiations if there's, if that's a possibility. And as much as Trump can become distracted, He's very, we know how he reacts. He's very thin-skinned. He wants to see solidarity with him all the time. He wants to know that people and countries are loyal to him. That's very important to him. And so it's not like, even though we might be distracted by the what's going on in Iran, he's still cognizant of other moving pieces and where a country like Canada is falling on that.
Last question. Pierre Poilievre was also traveling last week or the week before. He was over in the UK and doing some touring around Europe. This is not a normal thing for the opposition leader, is it?
No, I mean, especially for Pierre Poilievre, frankly. I mean, it's not like he can go over there and make deals, right? He's not representing the country. He's the opposition leader. He's not prime minister. But this is something that he has typically criticized prime ministers for doing. And so the fact that he's taking a very different kind of step here and he's traveling himself shows that he sees value in having those conversations internationally. It's going to be harder for him to point a finger at Mark Carney for doing it. And I think also it signals that he is listening to his caucus and that he's listening to people who want to see him show up differently.
Laurie, is always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure for me too.
That is Laurie Turnbull, political scientist at Dalhousie University. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, come on down. Price is Right tonight. Premieres on Citytv tomorrow. I'll have a conversation with somebody you're going to see right up there on the stage. Ashley Callingbull will be our guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. One of the things that I used to do when I was very young, when I would be off on summer vacation, or if we ever had a snow day, which we never did, and or if I had the flu or I was sick at home, we were able to turn on the television and curl up in that blanket and watch Bob Barker. That's how far back I go, and The Price is Right. Well, it's time for a Canadian edition of that program, and Citytv, of course, which is owned by Rogers, which owns this radio station, is about to launch that tomorrow night on Citytv or on Citytv Plus. The show is called The Price is Right tonight. It's starring legendary comedian and television personality Howie Mandel, and it's a Canadian version of the beloved game show. One of the people that you're going to see on the stage is the prize presenter, and that is Ashley Callingbull. And Ashley took some time out of her busy schedule. The show's launching tomorrow and is going to spend a few minutes with us here. Ashley, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This must be pretty exciting. If you're as big a fan of Price is Right as many of our listeners and many Canadians are, this has to be pretty cool.
Oh, it is a dream come true. I actually grew up watching the show, so I'm a huge fan. So getting the call to be on the Canadian version is just like a dream.
Ashley, tell us a little bit about what we're going to see. Is it going to resemble what we're used to with the American version?
100%. It's just going to be just like the American version, but better. and it's at night. So it's at night. The floor will be different, but the same games. You got Plinko, Cliffhanger. You can win cars. You can win up to $70,000. I feel like the prizes, though, are bigger and better. And the crowd, they are so much fun. I feel like with this show, you're really going to be able to get to know the contestants more and why they want to win instead of, just breezing over and going on to the next thing. You get really emotionally invested in it and you really feel for them. So everyone's going to really get into it for sure.
The big voice, the come on down voice, of course, will be familiar to many of our listeners who listen to the Blue Jays broadcast here. Ben Schulman's going to be the voiceover guy. And, of course, as I mentioned off the top, the host of the show, the legendary Howie Mandel. Tell me a little bit about your interactions with Howie. He's a pretty fun guy.
Oh, yeah. He's a great guy to work with. He always keeps me on my toes. He's always busting out some new jokes and making everyone laugh. And he's quick, he's witty, and I feel like I'm also learning a lot from him when we film the show. And it's just so much fun. And everyone knows him. So when it comes out, it's just going to be such a big thing. And I'm just so excited. I feel like I've been waiting forever for it to come out.
Right. I think many Canadians have. It's been a minute since we've had something that has generated this much buzz.
Yeah, and I feel like people are going to be really invested, but also the prizes, I think people are going to really be blown away. We have like the signature games, but the prizes, they're way out there, more than I expected, so that's really exciting.
Ashley, premieres tomorrow night on Citytv and on Citytv Plus. Is it a weekly? Is it every Tuesday?
Yes, every Tuesday you'll be seeing me for 3 months.
Well, we're looking forward to it. I know you're busy. I know it's launch day tomorrow, so we're very glad you're able to spend a few minutes with us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And everyone tune in. You're going to love it.
All right. That is Ashley Callingbull, is the prize presenter on The Price is Right tonight, which will premiere at 9 o'clock Atlantic time tomorrow on Citytv and on Citytv Plus. I'm looking forward to it, and I know many of you are as well. It's interesting how that game show has it's cross-generational, right? I mean, I go back as far as Bob Barker, and then Drew Carey took it over, and now we have our very own Canadian edition of it, and we're looking forward to seeing Howie Mandel, who you see him all over the place, right? And I'm going to say he's going to do an outstanding job, and we're looking forward to seeing that on the City TV, and I hope that you can tune in to that as well. Still to come on the program, we're not done. No, we still got some things to do here on the show. We're going to perhaps, Vanessa tells me that she was wandering by the prize cupboard today, and we're not doing it yet. We're going to do it in the next half an hour, but she has something that is very exciting for us to give away, at least for me. We'll tell you what that's going to be in the next 30 minutes or so. So make sure that you stick around here on the show, and I promise it'll be worth your time. This just came across my desk. The Nova Scotia RCMP have continued their crackdown on unlicensed cannabis stores, with most of the targeted sites having Indigenous ties. The Mounties say they inspected 5 operations last week, 4 of which were in First Nations territory. They included stores in Eskasoni and Wacoba territories, and another near Digby, where the Indigenous-owned Peace and Friendship Trading Post has been the scene of several raids in recent months. Provincial government has directed police to step up enforcement against what it calls illegal cannabis stores, but some First Nation leaders say they have a treaty right to sell the product. Police say they have issued now 6 summary offense tickets and seized cannabis and hash as part of those inspections last week. The chief of the Sabaganagati First Nation, Michelle Glasgow, said last week on social media that checkpoints were being set up at the entrances and exits of the community north of HRM. If you're where is this here? If you're not trying to do us any harm, you're welcome to our community, Glasgow said in the video. But for those who want to harm us, who want to do us harm by force, you're not welcome here. And if you're foolish enough to come here, you better be smart enough to figure out how you're getting out. So that situation continues to escalate, to grow. And we had the Justice Minister here last Monday, who said that this is necessary to ensure the safety of those that use this product, and went through the whole list of why, because it's uncontrolled. They don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what the potency is, and so on and so forth. We'll keep our eye on this situation with cannabis storefronts here in Nova Scotia as the days and weeks roll along. We're going to take another break here on the program. When we come back, the show continues with a conversation with the Community Action Response Team and Community Policing Officer Sergeant Serge Landry will be joining us. He is a member of the RCMP's Halifax detachment, and everybody's got a phone, right? And we're all taking videos these days of everything that's happening. Police are saying that you could actually harm an investigation by posting your video online. A conversation with the RCMP when we come back, and listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in a minute. Welcome back. we're in the age of everybody having some sort of camera or video camera machine. Most of them, of course, are phones. Many others are like doorbell cameras and security cameras that you may have installed in your business or even around your property. And how many times have, and I'm putting my hand up in the air because I see it all the time, how many times have you seen somebody post it to a group in social media, right? Maybe a concerned citizens group or a neighborhood group or something along those lines with pictures of somebody say, hey, I just had my truck stolen. This is what it looks like. Let's help catch this guy. Let's, reach out. Let me know if you see it or if anything else. And I think it probably comes from a good place where people trying to help or people trying to help a friend in need. But the RCMP caution against that is you may be doing more harm than good. I'm very pleased to welcome to the show today to tell us a little bit more about this community action response team and community policing officer that with the RCMP Halifax detachment, that is Sergeant Serge Landry. Sergeant Landry, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Very good. Thank you.
So this is I don't think it's a new phenomenon, but I see it a lot where people are grabbing video and posting it on social media to try and catch people on their own. And you and RCMP say this may be doing a little bit more harm than good. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And you know what? You made a really good point earlier where the intentions are good, right? We all want to help. We want that to solve those crimes in the community and that's really important in keeping our public safe, right? Keeping our community safe. But it can be really dangerous. And we just ask everybody to really think before you post. And I think that would be the key message today is what are you looking to get out of this? Are you looking to public shame? Are you looking to do that? Or are you looking, hey, I need some help? And if you need some help, call the police. Get us involved in the beginning.
Sergeant Landry, how is it dangerous? How is posting these things dangerous to us?
Well, when you post something online, it's always there, right? It's a digital footprint, and when you start doing that, people respond. They can change the photo, they can change the narrative, and then they can start their own narrative. And that can be really, really harmful. And especially if you're somebody in the community that's prominent or somebody that doesn't have a lot of the Facebook or Instagram security features installed, people can come back towards you, retaliate towards you. And especially if you're pretty active on there, you can become a target. Even though you're trying to do something good, that could come back on you.
Sergeant Landry, everybody's got a camera these days, right? I've got one on my phone, and most people have one, or not most, some people have them in their doorbells. They have surveillance cameras on their property. If we get pictures of somebody committing an act like stealing something or what's the best approach? Is a call to the RCMP the right approach?
Absolutely. The call to us is key. Get that information to us. When you're talking about those doorbell cameras, there's all different platforms for viewing all of these things, right? So some stuff had very proprietary viewing platforms, et cetera. That's okay. Just give us the original raw data, and then we can figure out how to get that information off. So, like your Ring cameras, your cell phones, for example, all of that information, when you get it to us, can help solve offenses. It could be that key piece that we need in conjunction with like witness statements or timelines or anything like that. Getting us that raw data, getting us that stuff that's got that time stamp and there's no editing to it. Those things are going to be really, really important for us.
How about porch pirates? Somebody coming stealing packages off your porches. Is that something we should be giving to you folks?
Absolutely. Get it to us because then we can start analyzing where these are happening. And then we can start identifying crime trends. And that's huge for us. When we start seeing these, we can start focusing our patrols. Our general duty members on the road, they're tasked with, looking at high crime areas. If there is porch pirates and we have that, that gets shared around the office internally within our RCMP email system. And these give us some very targeted approaches.
The video. Do you as and I don't want to give away any of your investigative techniques, but do you folks patrol through social media to see if people are posting these things?
That I can't answer to.
Right.
My unit deals with working within the communities, dealing with exactly what I was just talking about. Those high crime areas, those areas that we are identified through our crime analysts. That's where we start focusing, and then we start doing some of our techniques to try and the porch pirates or those folks.
Right. So again, if you have if it's dash cam or if it's Ring cameras or your own, you've shot your own video with your camera. Where is it? Your local detachment? Is there the best place that we can send this stuff?
Well, actually, we've got something new with our new body worn cameras that we have.
Right.
And investigators will hand out their business card. They'll have it's a community request, and we can send you a link, and then you can upload that photo, and it comes immediately to us. And that actually starts putting timestamps on stuff, and we can use that as part of our file. So it's automatically given to us. That is the best thing. If you see an offense and have you videoed one, absolutely get us call into that 490-5020, or whichever ones in Nova Scotia. There's also those other ones with not just here in Halifax, but then we can get that uploaded into our Axon body-worn camera system, and start collecting that data.
It's about chain of evidence and building a case, right?
Absolutely.
Sergeant, do you get a lot of people that send you all your videos?
We do actually quite a bit. We have that online reporting with regards to a lot of the. Forgive the term; it's not low-level crime, but we're talking like thefts under a lot of the businesses will use that as well, and that's one of the standard questions: is do you have video? Do you have a photo? Like, we want those. Right, that gives us, and we've seen some success here in Halifax itself with NSLC. Our unit was able to work with loss prevention NSLC and identified. I think we're up to over 20 individuals, and that is huge in those recent, like all of those thefts of liquor.
Right,
that was a huge collaboration and just phenomenal work. It's been awesome.
So the moral of the story here, Sergeant, is that you might get a little bit of satisfaction by trying to shame somebody on social media, but you'll be far better off by turning over any evidence that you have to the authorities, and then you folks can work from there.
Absolutely. Get it to us early, and if it's consistent and we see it with the, porch pirates, for example, in a certain community, and that stuff comes in, it really, really gives us a leap forward.
Sergeant Landry, appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
You too, sir. That is Sergeant Serge Landry. He's a Community Action Response Team, community policing officer with the RCMP here in Halifax. Sometimes I think when you've been the victim of a crime, and I mean, most of us have been, I know I have, and I know many of you have, it's that feeling, like, at least for me, that you just can't do anything, right? And it's easy to take that video and to pump it out there and to get it onto social media to try and, for the most part, recover your stolen property, right? But you open yourself up to all kinds of things should you do that. Best practice is to send it to the RCMP and let them do their work. I mentioned that we have a surprise for you from the prize drawer, and that's going to happen here within the next 15 minutes. Make sure that you stick around. Going to take another break here on the show. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. Back. I got an email during the last little bit here as we had a bit of a conversation during the open hour today about transit. And one of the topics of discussion, going all the way back to our conversation with our councillors on the hot seat, was that of the student transit pass. And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Student Transit Pass was a program that allowed students in I think it was middle school to high school to access transit for free. And the province would spend money on that, and the city as well, to buy those passes and then give them to the children so that they could use the bus. And the idea, sort of the genesis behind the idea, was to create a transit mentality in the next generation, to have them maybe remove some of the, and I don't know if stigma is the right word with regards to public transit, but for years and years, transit was kind of looked down upon, right? And now we know that there's a congestion problem. Now we know that we're trying to get people out of their cars, and this was an effort to try and get it out, beginning with the next generation, if that makes any sense. The province announcing during the Blizzard budget a couple Mondays ago that they were no longer going to support that program. And HRM has said, except earlier today, Council said they were going to take another look at it, but the indications from Transit or from Council are that they just won't be able to shoulder the financial burden themselves, right? It's millions of dollars. So it looks like that program is in jeopardy. Here on the program, we take a lot of calls every day. We allow people to share their opinions and thoughts, and I'm always very happy when I get an email or a caller from that younger generation, and that's what I got today, and I'm going to share it with you as part of the show here today. It says, "Hey Dan and the City News team, I'm a grade 11 student advocating for better transit. Recently, the provincial budget cuts have included the gutting of the Student Transit Pass pilot program in Halifax. The writer goes on to say, I was wondering if you could get more coverage on this topic and also spread the word about my petition, aiming to save the funding for the program. The reason why I'm asking is because a lot of my friends rely on taking public transit to school free of charge. Ending that program will cost their parents $792 a year more on transportation, which will further result in the following consequences. Loss of independence, because students will have to pay more for public transit, forcing them to have their parents drive them to school, which you don't have to stray far from an elementary to school to see what that's like at the beginning of school and at the end of the day. Number 2, worsening traffic congestion and air pollution in the HRM, as the region already has the third worst congestion in Canada, and eliminating this program will increase reliance on driving. And number 3, youth will lose affordable transit access to their schools and to work. Amidst these cuts, I wanted to ask whether that is acceptable, to spread the word around my petition so more people in Halifax could sign it. And, of course, that there's a link that's attached, and it's on the GoFundMe, and you can search that one and find it yourself. It's almost refreshing to hear somebody that's in high school, a grade 11 student, that much involved in their community, that they're willing to reach out to organizations to try and spread the word, start petitions, and try and save this. It's almost like a breath of fresh air, right? We talk about the subjects and the issues of the day here every day on the Todd Veinotte Show, and I truly love doing it. But it's very nice to hear someone, a younger person, taking charge and getting involved in their community. That gives me a little bit of hope for humanity moving forward. Thanks. I appreciate the email. Okay, so I mentioned that Vanessa had been strolling by the prize cabinet, and she came to me today with this. Vanessa has a look when she has something that she knows I'm going to like, and she says, "Dan, we have some tickets to give away on the show today." I'm like, "Oh, very cool." And I'm like, well, the Mooseheads regular season's over. So I'm like, that's not the Mooseheads. What are they? So she handed me the envelope, and there, and lo and behold, folks, with our conversation that we had a couple of weeks back with the guitar player for the band Triumph, with Rick Emmett, that in 1979, the 3 albums I bought that year was Pink Floyd The Wall, right? Kiss Dynasty, and Triumph. And they're coming to Halifax. It's not that far away, and we have a pair of tickets to go and see them. If you want to go see Triumph at the Scotiabank Centre, here's your opportunity on us. And I'm jealous. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Pair of tickets to see Triumph at the Scotiabank Centre with April Wine as the opening act. Come on, does it get any more Canadian than that? Haven't been on the road together in 30 years. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. All the best. I wore out the grooves on that album. And there's some of you out there of that vintage that will know what that was like. When you had the old school vinyl records, you played them till the needles broke, and then you put new needles on, you played them again, right? And being that we couldn't, back in those days in 1979, buying 3 albums a year was kind of a big thing, right? Because it was 1979. Anyway, so very glad, and Vanessa made that happen, and it was like a bucket list for me to talk to Rick Emmett. And I'm looking forward to that show. Maybe we'll see you there, whoever wins the tickets. I never said what caller number. Vanessa, what caller number is it? 9. Caller number 9. All right, there you go. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be a great show, and I know the Metro Center will be rocking when that show happens here on the program. We're almost out of time, folks. Got another email, and this one comes to Rob, and it's regards to the email I just read. It says the grade 11 students' comments just show how stupid our council is. Cut trees, but they want to. But then they want to charge taxes for this environmental stuff. They want to add bike lanes and remove bus services. They want to go electric, but the electricity comes from coal. I could go on and on and on about things that just don't add up when this council comes to with us with decision. Student points out that we're going to increase traffic congestion and fuel costs if we remove public transit costs for students. He makes a really valid point, and I'd love to hear how council responds to that. Well, we will do the very, very same thing, and we look forward to that. We'll watch the budget discussions with interest. There's only one more left, I think. That's tomorrow. There's a regional council meeting tomorrow and a budget meeting tomorrow. And if they get through it all, Councillor Cleary says, then they are done. And they are done until the 31st of March, when they will make the final call and bring the final number. So we're going to have a couple of weeks of no budget discussions, and then we'll get a final number. So I look forward to seeing what that number is. And we will, of course, keep a very close watch on what's going on at Regional Council. Also keeping a very close watch on what's going on in the Middle East. There's an emergency debate tonight at the House of Commons where politicians will get together and will raise their concerns, maybe their opposition to Canadian involvement in the Middle East as that situation continues to escalate. The Iranians naming a new supreme leader. I think they've officially announced it today. And in the hours and minutes after that, the bombing intensifies on both sides of the conflict. I don't think we're going to see this thing end anytime soon, folks. It's unfortunate. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. No matter what you think where you think where you land on this war, they never really solve anything, right? Even if we force regime change, it very rarely works. But that's something we may want to discuss tomorrow. My thanks to all of our guests who joined the conversation and imparted their knowledge upon us. I truly learned something each and every day that we do this show. My special thanks to all of you who dialed the numbers and joined the Councillors on the Hot Seat and the Open Hour. I make my day each and every day that you do it. My enduring gratitude to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who does outstanding work as always. And we certainly couldn't do this show without her. It's going to be a lovely couple of days, folks. We're looking at double-digit temperatures today, temperatures that could reach 14 degrees tomorrow. My advice to you is if you have a catch basin, get out there and clear it, because it's going to be a lot of melt and snow happening. And if you're anything like me, you're done with winter. And I'm done with winter, and I'm looking forward to spring. I was concerned, and I think I raised it with Alistair on Friday when he does his regular bit, that I was worried that might not be able to get into the rivers on the 1st of April when fishing season kicks off, but I don't know. It's looking pretty good now. Anyway, get out there and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer, folks. With these temperatures and that long winter behind us, we are truly blessed to live where we do. Despite all of the problems and the warts, we live in a wonderful place And people travel thousands of miles and spend thousands of dollars just to come and see what is right there in our backyard. Don't forget, tomorrow is Tuesday. Dr. Rob Thacker will be here for Science Files. I hope that you join the conversation for that. Until then, folks, get out there, have fun, be well, and remember, it's important to be kind to one another.